which you won't necessarily accept in your home where you live or the condominium that you have paid a couple $1 million for.
But it's it's something that they can relate to. So as soon as they walk in, they're feeling good about the place, and that's very important in our waiting rooms and things.
I think Annie could talk about the transformation of the workplace.
Yeah,
because
let's
happening so rapidly of bringing the same features of support, comfort, amenities.
I think for, not to cut you off, I think for HarperCollins it was twofold. It was aesthetic and functionally. We were challenged in both areas. We wanted to appeal to our literary heritage, the Mark Twain, the Shel Silverstein, the Harper Lee, E.B. White, literary giants that we are home to, we are the home of. But also Cameron Diaz and Amanda Knox have published their books with us as well. So making sure that we cover and we make all our authors and agents feel comfortable in our space, and they walk into our space and feel like this is a home, this is where they want to be. Capturing that was hard for us to visualize, which we spent a lot of time with our architect kind of coming up with designs and ways to kind of walk that fine line. We didn't want to be a totally digital screens and flashy and very modern, but we also didn't want to look like a library. So what was that fine line was a challenge for us.
So that leads to the next question almost, like how materials actually inform the space.
Right. So the challenges were twofold for HarperCollins. One is to bridging the gap of generations. So CEO of HarperCollins, Brian Murray, showed us this old magazine that pictured this one of the old editors.
It's more of a gathering space. It's a communal hangout area where you can just plug your laptop in. You can work anywhere. It's really very much changed. In our current building, it's almost like a closet that happens to have a sink and a refrigerator, and you just keep your lunch in there. But in our new space, it'll be a beautiful bar with a great setup that is very inviting for you to kind of spend your afternoon there and have your meetings and take your conference calls. But I think for us, for HarperCollins, one of the big behavioral cultural changes is we need to be more flexible with our industry and the way ebooks are going. It's completely changed where we were 5 years ago. We think we know where we're going in the next 5 and 10 years, but we need to be flexible. And things like furniture and design and layout all very much lent itself to that in our new space. Being able to quickly change a conference room into more workspace or vice versa was very important and something that we did spend a lot of time planning and discussing when we designed it.
Interesting behavioral change in the workplace is people don't go to work. People go to work to meet. So the very fact that we talked about, Michael touched upon, the technology lets you work anywhere. So people work from home, and one of the hotel hospitality amenities that we're forgetting oftentimes is you can actually go to your room and retire and be alone. So that can happen very easily with these residential towers. Everything respects your privacy. Everyone gives you your space. So we often talk about why do you go to work anymore? And that is to meet and collaborate. And people don't necessarily collaborate at the meeting rooms. People can collaborate via GoToMeeting, via share your file, via what we call Procore. Everything can be collaborative. But the workplace today needs to give you a reason to go to work. And that is to meet your people and actually have a FaceTime and be more productive in that way. So I have a friend who works at Google, and she works from home mostly. And she goes to work actually to go to Google Cafe because they have such good breakfast. And you can meet there. So these kind of amenities that people, the companies provide, actually, you need to be attractive to retain the talent and have them want to come to work. So very similar to hotel, why do you go to Four Seasons versus W? There's got to be something that you like going there more. So if you can work anywhere, why do you work at HarperCollins, not Simon & Schuster? So those kind of harsh questions really need to be asked, and that needs to be implemented in design. And that's what we needed to really look at when we were designing new HarperCollins.
And I think we talked about that also, about the millennial, that they're, they come into the workforce and they already have their Facebook page and their Twitter and their Instagram and their Pinterest and stuff. So they're branded already. So they come into your branded environment and it has to resonate with who they perceive they are. And I think that's the big cultural shift I've noticed. So.
Yeah, and what you'll see, I think Coach is an interesting example for us. They moved, or are moving, from a 15-story brick loft building on 34th Street near 10th Avenue. They love the building, but obviously they've outgrown it. So they wanted to, replicate that experience, that kind of bricky, New Yorky, industrial look and feel, because they thought there was something authentic and New Yorky about that. And we're designing 52-story buildings that are all glass and metal. So clearly we couldn't do that, and we weren't going to build, tall brick buildings. But what they did, they actually cut a 15-story atrium in the base of their building. You'll see it in one of the renderings, and that aligns completely with the High Line. So it's a 15-story atrium where every floor will be connected. So they have this community, this vertical community campus at the base of their tower, which is, how they're beginning to work differently. So
that's conducive to their needs, as well as patients receiving the brand and attaching that to the quality, which really they come to expect. So we're in a space now where we have an opportunity to provide quality care. The business is doing well. We're rolling out 60 centers this year across the metropolitan area. So yeah, can't go into the specifics of numbers, but doing well, and that's our specific challenges, because healthcare traditionally doesn't compete in the branding world, and it's starting to do that now.
I think it's also becoming a big differentiator for your brand. Obviously, there's other competitive offerings in New York that offer similar type of services. I think the branding is really differentiating them. It's also stealing share of voice or awareness from the other ones. Just the other week, one of your competitors was actually doing some street advertising on bicycles and billboards, and people were yelling out, "City MD, City MD," So it's just, it's becoming top of mind. The branding is helping it. Everything is.
We don't have competitors.
They don't have
just to
competitors.
let you know. So.
Try to tell them that. But we do live in a parity world in some business segments in certain areas, and so the branding and the environmental design really helps City MD really differentiate themselves, and I think that's been a big success on that end.
As Jill touched upon, I think for HarperCollins, it was being the pioneer of the industry and providing the things that other companies don't. So they have quiet rooms where editors can go in, and it's different setting. There's a bar setting, there's a lounge setting, there's even Barca Lounger that you can sort of like semi lay down. When we first started designing, we did a very extensive questionnaire and answer sessions. And one of the things the editor said, I actually don't edit at work. I just have meetings, I'm on the phone all the time, I yell at people, then I go home.
No.
I go home, and actually I edit at my kitchen bar. Some said I edit at my bedroom, actually laying down. That's how I best think and edit. And some say I actually edit with my music on at a couch. So we try to create those rooms where you can actually go and edit. And if you create those enough, and you create your kitchen, you create your cafe, you have meeting room that's bar setting, you have an editing room that's a couch setting, and you recreate your home, then you don't really need a giant private office with meeting space here and this and this. So kind of what Michael touched upon, when you have all these amenities around you, your workspace can be very efficient. And being that pioneer really is the benefit of retaining and attaining new talent.
I think I'm sort of fortunate to have this different perspective also. Rockwell Group is going to celebrate their 30th year, and when I joined the firm a while back, it wasn't 30 years ago, that Rockwell Group
we talked about that. Barry, you want to answer that? That's exactly
Yeah,
what we
it's, you know, we use boomers, millennials to kind of showcase the demographic shifts that are happening, but everyone is actually really different, and there's no kind of nice, neat kind of way to wrap it all up. Because when we create spaces, it has to appeal to all generations and all kind of people and all types. And so this is kind of a neat way of sort of talking about major changes that are afoot and how we can sort of see it. We could see it, like when Annie and I talk, I'm just like, it is so fast, Happy the Workspace, that how it's transforming and changing. It's no longer, as we said, like you used to sit at your desk, we're on a sea of other desks. Now you want to like come to the table like at Starbucks. And I think we all are can be open or conditioned to go do this. And the why, the between the X generation between that's kind of actually has the ability to kind of learn from both generations and respond to both. And I think that's all generations have to be kind of applied for. And the great thing about hospitality, it supports and comforts everyone to what their sort of abilities, their nature is, and not to kind of say like segment them in like, oh, here is a place for this or that. It's a convenient way for us to talk about it, but the truth is it's a much more complex and intergenerational, and all of us, we live in, I think we live as both our youth, is in our sense of our youth is still with us, as well as being old. So we're always having the duality and the contradictions are all part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's not as binary as I think it's being described in the discussion, because one of the things that I find, we talk about designers.
Yes,
I like the musical interlude.
What
kinda like a-
generational musical?
It's like you're on hold on at
Gen
the
X.
doctor's office. You're on hold. Right.
Trailing boomer?
I invited
right.
them.
You know, design is interesting because, yes, change is happening fast, but, I mean, you're all designers. Change doesn't happen fast. It takes a generation to make this. So this is not a pivot. You know, it's not like we're already now designing an office building. I'm still designing an office building the same way I would have designed it 20 years ago, basically. It still has elevators, it still has walls, it still has columns. You know, it's pretty, but we do little things. I mean, from an architectural standpoint, we have floor-to-ceiling glass. Everybody likes that. It's floor-to-ceiling glass. You know, it makes the view better. You know, we have healthier air. Everybody benefits from that. So, you know, there are, you know, changes that happen incrementally, but it's interesting for me as we're pushing because, by the way, the decision makers are not millennials. You know, the people, the CEO who's making the decision is not the millennial, but he or she should be sensitive to the fact that they should retain talent at every level. So it really is a way of kind of polarizing it to make sure that you're getting the right stuff in the mix, because it takes a long time to convince your clients to do something any different from what they did before.
I have a question. Okay. So you guys all talked about kind of having different workspaces depending on what environment you need to create, et cetera, and collaboration as the buzzword. Can you talk a little bit more about open spaces? Because I've seen a lot, especially recently, that there is a little bit of a debate if an open space, and even in my company, like some people love it and some people hate it. It's, you know, kicking in their ADD, it's driving them nuts, and other people it's wonderful. I'm just curious to what extent, you know, your client base seems to find an open space a good thing, and in what places it's a bad thing. And then, you know, Annie in particular, it seems like you have a good mix, like the balance of both, with not only generations, but just different personality types, different work styles, etc.
Yes. So we get this question all the time. How open is open, and has open gone too far? And we're not all traders. The open space, I think in concept, it's not so much for the collaboration. You can collaborate in the meeting space and in team rooms. Open space is more about your presence and why you're there. So we earlier talked about why people go to work when you can work from home. I can work from this all the time. Actually, I have the questions here. I don't have a note. And the reason why we go to work, I go to work because I can work with my team. I can see them, and somebody will talk to me. And I didn't plan that meeting, but somebody will talk to me. I'll talk to somebody. I may go, oh, you're back from vacation. Oh, I needed to talk to you about this so-and-so project. So that sort of an accidental encounters and sort of seeing people and knowing other people are present is the really essence of the open space. How much open, whether it's all benching or where you have glass fronts or whether you have workstations with a certain amount of glass, that really that gets determined by the nature of the work of each client. We still have legal clients who would want offices. We have advertising clients or PR clients who wants everybody open. In our office, everybody's open except for one person who handles the payroll and benefits. So, and the trend is usually when you go open, you don't want to go back because it feels like if you're in the office, you are being punished. You're being sent to jail. So when it's all open, you want to be open. But like Michael said, when it's open, you also need to provide the amenities. So the reason why the desk footprint is getting a little bit smaller is because you have other resources to work. So if you are in your office 8 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours a day, working on your computer and having meeting people when they come in, you work certain amount of time at your desk, and then you go to the lounge to have a meeting. You go to the large table out there at a benching, standing height, to look at some materials and have an encounter meeting. You have a cafe. We have a large cafe, dedicated, large space, really dedicated for this cafe at HarperCollins. You can have a meeting there. You can grab a coffee and have a meeting there. So these amenities come sort of in balance, in harmony, and I think the whole open concept really needs to be handled by each client's needs.
But also, I think the biggest challenge for designers is providing focus in a place that's very open. Because as Annie said, once you lower the partitions, they're no longer be 6 feet. 42 is the maximum now. It's going to be open. And so providing, for us as designers, is figure out how to provide focused environments that's not just headphones in there. Because we're never going to go back, because most of businesses want collaboration and understand that innovation happens in interstitial spaces where you kind of meet by happen chance. So it's a different, there's still a lot of things to be settled and figured out, but the great thing is the designers have a big challenge in the next, how to figure out how to make this work.
With the healthcare, the open spaces have actually helped us a lot. The analogy I brought up at the beginning with the Cedars-Sinai. I was at NYU a couple of weeks ago for a very intense emergency in my family, and it literally took us 20 minutes to get from the entry point of reception to the urgent care center on the 4th floor. CityMD, although the spaces are much smaller, they're very simply laid out. We make it so easy for the patients not to get lost in mazes of corridors once they leave the exam room if they have to go to a lab. It's basically all laid out on that central corridor, which gives those doctors the gravitas and eludes that confidence. The exam rooms are basically double loaded against the corridor, and it's a big program that's squeezed into a relatively small footprint. But we have really simplified the open waiting room. We've made it in a way where you basically go to check-in, sit, and then it's nearly a straight line most of the time to the exam rooms, and nobody gets lost. And it's easy you may, but occasionally.
I'm going to take another question.
So first, I could speak for the millennials. We don't mind the label so long as we get free Wi-Fi out of it. Michael, I hope you guys are exploring that. I'm sure you are. So one thing, a notion that was mentioned early on is that in hospitality, the design is really kind of the pinnacle of what we're able to design, or what designers are able to put out, and then that trickles down into office, residential, hospitality. There's one aspect of the design that I find even some of the best hotel designers or brands have not been able to execute, and it's placed when you're in Neuhaus that you see, it's the artwork. The collection here is amazing. When it comes to our hotels, the artwork sometimes, in my opinion, falls short. I'm wondering, from a design perspective, either residential or operational perspective, how artwork has come into play, both from the design side and the sourcing side, but also what guests and what clients want.
One thing we're just looking at right now is technology we talked about. It's sort of in the new luxury, technology can actually provide content in different ways and installations. And much like you have at PS1, you have installations. So I think there's going to be more emphasis on less framed art than installations, things that are more immersive, connective, and how technology can actually provide content and change and variability. So it's going to change like the idea of art, because curated art is really not accessible and affordable from a hotel, 4-star, even 5-star. But it's only a few places that can really afford really great art. So I think these other ways, in what we're doing in 15 Hudson Yards, is to create this sort of installation about nature, indoor, outdoor. You're right there, the High Line, which is where nature's taken over the urban structure. And from the very beginning, you're thinking about that conversation between nature and buildings, because it's very open on the sort of plaza level.
Okay, we're out of time right now, so thank you all for joining us. And I want to just thank my outstanding panel again. And please take
Thanks.
advantage of this cool space we're in. We have one more hour that we could drink, mix, mingle, and we'll look forward.